by popular demand, he is back. This is Dr. Horace Drew, or otherwise known as at Red Collie One on Twitter. You're a very popular guy on Twitter with all your information, sir. Well, first of all, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much, Jason, and all your friends.
Yeah, you're right. And there's lots of new people tonight that are probably coming in for the very first time ever who have never seen you and not seen the first video you did. So we're gonna get into some deep subjects tonight. But what I'd love for you to do first is I would love for you to give everyone your background, where you come from, who you are, and kind of how you got into this whole crop circle thing and everything else.
Just briefly, I was born in Florida in 1955. I'm getting a bit older here, you can see. A bit sunburned also. It's been working really hot here right now. And then around 10 years old, a lot of my friends had seen UFOs in Florida, like half of them. It was a very big thing. Around age 10, I saw a saucer. I turned around, I was with my neighbor, and he had his dog. It started barking. There was this big saucer hanging in the air right behind us, like 50, 100 meters away, not very far. I could, just like a helicopter, but it was solid, a big thing, about 20 meters. And I was sort of shocked. The dog was barking because of the noise, the high-pitched noise. And I was just amazed. I'd seen them, but I hadn't seen a real one before. And I was amazed at the propulsion. It was just sitting up there like aluminum or silver and just sitting there somehow and just hovering. And I got amazed. And I guess I watched it about 30 seconds. Then it zipped off about 2,000 miles an hour over the trees. And this was just after the Cuban Missile Crisis. So my first thought was not that it was a UFO. I thought at first it was a Russian secret weapon. And that sounds crazy, but in those days, it was, Russia, there was just the Cuban Missile Crisis. People in Florida were very worried. We had 3 military bases in Jacksonville. So I called up the Naval Air Station and reported it because I didn't realize it was an alien thing. And then later on, I saw pictures of alien craft, and that's how I got started. And then after that, I went to interested in science, having seen that, and I went to Caltech as a grad student. And in 1980, I did the first X-ray structure of DNA in a crystal. It's called CGCGAATT the Dickerson-Drew dodecamer. I'm Drew. Dickerson was my boss, a very famous molecular biologist in university at Caltech and UCLA, like one of the great leaders of molecular biology, structural molecular biology. Very smart man. I don't want to compare my intellect to his. Anyway, I did a grad student there, and then I went to UCLA. Then I went to England with the MRC Cambridge, 5 years there, and the 13 Nobel Prize winners. Every day I would have Max Perutz, the great, who Watson and Crick's boss, would be in the lab working with us. All the great scientists were right there. Watson would come in, Crick would come by. My boss was the head of the Royal Society, Aaron Klug. So I had all these famous scientists working. And it's very good training because then you really learn, it's like boot camp. You learn how science is supposed to be done. There's none of this crap. You learn how you meet the top scientists. You say, can I get on the same level as them? What do you have to do? Because they're the top people in the world. They invented, Cesar Milstein, who invented monoclonal antibodies, was there at the same time. You can just talk to these guys. Fred Sanger was there. He invented the DNA Genome Project. All these very famous scientists were right there in a casual first name basis. So it's sort of like, the top lab in Cambridge. And then I met an Australian wife and I came out here to Sydney and worked in the national lab here for 23 years. CSIRO, Commonwealth Scientific Industrial Research Organization. And then I retired in 2010 at age 55. And that gives me the freedom now to do UFOs and crop circles, which I'd always wanted to do. Because you can't really do that in the science system. They don't approve of it. They're not very open. Just sort of like that.
You're in a league of your own, my man. You're between, and this is why I think this is why I found you so fascinating. Other than just your creden what you do, which is I've always thought crop circles were absolutely fascinating. I've always been completely fascinated by the ET UFO situation, but then the way you bring it out and the fact that you studied DNA and then you study the crop circles. We're going to get into that in a little bit. Don't worry, we're going down that road, folks. And then I got pulled back into your world again because I interviewed Janet Osibard about 2 weeks ago, and the one who did the documentary Follow the Cabal, and she told me she also has been with crop circles, and she actually saw some take place, and it was done by either there was definitely nobody doing it. There was nobody with 2x4s doing it. So I'm finding your guys' world very fascinating.
Yeah, Jen and I are good friends, in case you didn't know.
I actually did not know that. Now I'm very
Oh yeah,
fascinated by
we're
both of you.
good friends like for 13 years now, like brother and sister almost. So we actually know each other very well.
That's
So
that's so awesome.
yeah,
So I want to dive right into this, and we'll
we'll
go
talk
into
about
the
the
DNA stuff and everything else if necessary. But first of all, we have an election here in the U.S. that is completely insane, and I know you wanted to give some updates on that.
I'd like to, but first, what I want to do is I've got some, rather than me just talking like a talking head, I think it's useful to show visual material.
Go
Because,
for it.
you talk about Janet, she's such a good public speaker. I'm sort of a scientist where we give a slide and we look at it. So I'm not really a public speaker or an orator. I really sort of need visual material, and that's how I present like a scientist. I'm not just some talking head. Can we start with the latest crop picture in Brazil?
I want you to take this wherever you take it, and I'll just guide you from there.
Okay, let's just start. Crop circles are ongoing. There have been 40 of them, almost all paranormal this summer. It's not a big season, but 40 is still a lot, 40 ET events around the world. The last one was October 28th in Santa Catarina near Ipuaçu in Brazil. And A.J. Gavard, the Brazilian UFO researcher who I also know, I had dinner with him 3 years ago in England and all his people. He went to investigate it firsthand, took the photos. So here's the photo he took. Okay, everybody see it?
Perfect.
Now, what is it? Why would they
It looks
draw
like a
that?
circle and a triangle.
Do you have any idea why they would draw that?
I would like you to educate me because I know nothing about this world.
Well, every crop circle is like a puzzle. You have to get into the head of the artist, and there's a puzzle. It looks incomprehensible. Like when I first looked at it for about an hour, I said, "This thing is incomprehensible. What are they doing?" I looked at it that way or that way, or what is it? Is it? And then I realized I had a gestalt, and I realized what it was. And quickly using computer graphics, I realized what you have to do. The schematic of it is on the side there, and you make another schematic of it reversed, and you overlap them with one another, and what do you get? The thing on the other side, the seed of life from sacred geometry. So each of these is half of the seed of life. Look at that transformation. Pretty cool, isn't it?
It's a beautiful design. It's actually the triangles too, the as above, so below. But what they've done is they destroyed that, and it's actually the I've heard of it, the flower of life. But yeah, totally tracking with you.
Yeah, the flower of life is a bigger version. This is called the seed. The flower of life is a bigger version of the same thing. So what they did was on the one of those little things that looks incomprehensible, top or bottom or one side, that's all they drew. And then we have to fill in the rest. So I looked at it and I said, I made another one. I flipped it around. I made it transparent. Then I overlapped it and I dragged it around. And suddenly it just clicked into place, like falling into a puzzle, like a Sudoku puzzle. So it's actually, that was our task, to take that incomprehensible thing and reconstruct it. Now that's pretty cool, isn't it?
That I'm completely fascinated by this world. So yeah, absolutely.
And a week went by and no one in the whole world apart from me figured it out.
That's
Thousands and
why
thousands.
you're who you are.
And I have not the only one. There are other people who can do this. But I just showed you the average human wouldn't do it. I'm sort of trained at doing this, okay? Now, if you want to see this latest, it's just a clever puzzle. There's more to it. Actually, in the landscape nearby, if you use Google Earth, where this thing was drawn, and you go to Google Earth where it was drawn, okay? And you look there in the landscape, because people like you ask, why did you draw in that field? You can actually see the schematic image of this woman in a flowing dress with curly black hair and the pencil in her mouth. The self-portrait of the artist is drawn nearby. It's a human woman from some other time or dimension or whatever. What came to my mind was Frida, the great Spanish artist. It looked just like her. So she actually saw, accidentally in the landscape, there's a picture which looks like a woman, and she put it right next to that. That's why she chose where to draw it. So when you use Google Earth, you can find out even more, like why did they draw it right there? And it's a human woman. I don't know where she's from, another time or space or whatever. But it's a different style of art. Now, if you want to see more of this, this was the 39th one of the year. I was just talking to him this morning. Is this mirror image on your screen or real time?
You're good. Crop Circle Connector 2020. So if I Google that, it'll come up.
So everybody out there will Google Crop Circle Connector 2020. That's my friend Mark Fussel's website. One man and his dog. Yeah. And it's the top crop circle website. Google censors it. So if you do crop circle, there's all this crap. If you want real crop circle information, there's several websites, not just this one. I'll mention them all. Crop Circle Connector 2020 is Mark's website in Bristol. Completely honest, no censorship. And you can go there and it'll give you all the ones for this year. Temporary Temples is another one with Steve and Karen Alexander. Lucy Pringle has one. There are other people, ground researchers. Paul Jacobs has one called Core Group Initiative. There are 4 major crop circles, and you don't see this anywhere in the mainstream news, but it's not human-made. It's happening 40 times every year since the year 1990. So we've got 1,200 of them, and nobody knows about it, and it changes your consciousness. When you see those beautiful images, it changes your consciousness. Okay, are you happy with that?
I love it.
This is just to get to, and just to show you, because I'm trained at the consciousness, I immediately did a computer overlap and made that, and nobody else could. But didn't take about an hour. It took about an hour to make the slide. Okay, but it's pretty cool, isn't it?
Beautiful.
Okay, now, so all that's going on, and nobody knows anything about it. The scientists don't know anything about it. It's like UFOs. There's lots of UFO stuff I could talk about, but nothing's happened lately. So people like to hear the latest news, that just what's happening right now with the crazy election, what's going to happen, where's it going. So what I'd like to do is, I'd like now, if you're happy, to get into a very contentious subject, time travel.
Go for it. I love this subject.
Every time I've gotten to it before, it was like a rabbit hole.
We like rabbit holes here.
And the most famous, just to remind you, the most famous time travel confirmed incident is at Rendlesham Forest 1980, where John Burroughs and Jim Penniston were taking aboard a time travel craft from somewhere else, a nuclear base. They shut off the nuclear missiles. The USA was about to have a nuclear war with Russia over Poland. When they shut it off, the talk of the war stopped. So maybe there would have been a war. They didn't want Europe to be contaminated with radioactivity. And if you look at Time Traveler's Year 8100, my name, I've written a whole big article about that. You can find that also. Rendlesham Forest, Year 8100, they say they come from. We don't really know that. There's also another time travel thing with this active military man called CJ. Now, CJ, that's not his real name. He's an active military man. I'm not going to say anything about him. I have to protect him. And he's going to be very, very important in the next 20 years. I think he'll be the ambassador to the alien races from Earth, because these alien races, they don't like the military. You have a straightforward guy, tall, eloquent, good-looking, speaks well, a natural leader. A natural leader, military, been in combat. And I think he'd be very important. They've been giving him all these telepathic messages.
You said something really interesting there that I don't want to interrupt, but I want to say. You said that they'll be an ambassador to the extraterrestrial races, meaning we're going to have disclosure at some point very soon.
Yeah, that's in the messages. It's there.
Okay.
He's actually there. They've chosen him because they don't really like. They just want a normal person, right? With charismatic normal person. And it's the Council of Five, they call themselves, the Emerther. You got to realize there's a Council of Five races, according to all these messages, looking over us. The Emerthers must be a million-year-old civilization. And we're like Brazilian Indians compared to them. We're very primitive, relatively primitive. So there's several grades of tech above us. So there's a supervisory race, sort of. And they're giving, imagine how far they're ahead of us. Anyway, I get these messages. They're all in computer codes. I would show them. They all use 4 symbols for computer codes, not 2 like ours. They've never been seeing these codes before on Earth. I can show you what they are. I tried to go to computer companies here and I said, why don't we switch to 4-symbol Wi-Fi? We can start using the new codes. And they don't want to do it. Our Wi-Fi uses 2 symbols. And also the encryption is unbreakable. So of course we can't get SETI messages because they're all encrypted by fractal antennas and this. It's very naive to think we're going to hear beep, 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 coming from out of, like our messages talking on Skype, heavily encrypted. You couldn't read it. So anyway, this is very, and I've got also a lot of time travel content in these messages, and I'm not allowed to disclose them for national security reasons. And one of them, just to give you, it's not ET, I'll just tell you what one of these time travel messages says, which no one else knows about except me and CJ, because I'm not allowed to disclose it, but I'm allowed to say it's a novel code I had to solve from scratch like this. And it comes from human physicists, particle physicists, who live in Jerusalem later in this century, 2050, 2060. And there's been a big disaster there. I'm not allowed to say what. And the message is asking us to reset time so the disaster never happens. And if the US or Israeli governments want this message, I'll provide it to them. I won't provide it to anybody else. And it has to be an official thing, not on the internet. It has to be, it's never going out. This is never going out on the internet. But if any government wants it, and let's just say Linda Howe's been censored over this. Linda Howe was not allowed to report this, okay? I know Linda, she was threatened in some way. I'm just telling you, that's all I'm going to say. And I'm not letting it out either, but no, I'm not being censored, but I thought it's sensible. And there's people in the future and desperate something bad, and they send a message back, and they ask us to reset time so this never happens. So I'm not worried. I think time will be reset, this will never be happen. All I'm going to say is, they're human physicists, I don't know if they're Muslims or whatever, and they're living, and what happens is, I'll tell you one thing which will shock you. Under the Mount of Olives, there are Jews are running out of burial space, so they built these big burial vaults under the Mount of Olives recently, and they put all the dead people there because they can't have cemeteries. Something has happened on the top side, and all of the people who survived have to be living down in the burial vaults. Like, that was their escape chamber. So that's where they are. Something has happened, they can't live on the surface anymore. I don't know if it's a worldwide, or UFO, or nuclear, or whatever. Anyway, what it does say, but I'm not going to say. Anyway, so that's a real time travel message. And it's from human physicists. It's not from some alien. These guys are particle physicists, just like you'd see in the universities, but they're living, they don't say exactly 40 years from now, 50 years. And look back to where we were in 1970 and just think, in 1970 they got a message from now. So that's a real thing. And at some point, we're going to have to reset time, okay? So now I've just given you a background before the new stuff. Are you happy with that, Jason?
I love it. You
Okay.
keep on going and telling us everything you need to tell us. We are open to it.
So we've got 3 sources of, I'll tell you a 4th thing to justify time travel. It's so important. We've got the Rendlesham Forest case. We've got these CJ messages. We have crop circles, which sometimes predict the future in crop circles, okay? Not often, but critically predict the future. I'll tell you one 4th thing, my own personal experience. In 1999, did you know Roger Lear, the UFO researcher?
Yeah, I know the name.
Yeah, Roger and I were good friends. He did alien implants, and he worked in Thousand Oaks. Dan Aykroyd was a close friend of him.
Dan Aykroyd is big into ETs and UFOs.
Yeah, Dan gave a lot of money to Roger secretly. I wasn't allowed to say at the time. He was a big supporter for the research, okay? And Roger passed away, very colleagues, right? I couldn't do much because I visited him 3 or 4 times in LA in Thousand Oaks. So the way I met Roger Lear, I had an emergency crisis. My father had just had a stroke in Florida in 1999. He passed, he 81 years old. So I rushed to get on the airplane with my daughter. We landed in Los Angeles. We were jet lagged. The smog was everywhere. Not like a beautiful Sydney here. It was just like, coughing and all that at the airport. And I couldn't get a spot, so I rang my friend in Georgia Tech, a professor, and said, can you give us a room overnight in Atlanta? Because we'd be too tired to travel on. So he's a friend of mine. We agreed to meet there. Then I get on the Delta flight from LA to Atlanta. This is my fourth time travel thing. And on the way, Roger, it turns out, I'm sitting in seat 1A with my daughter. Roger's seat 22A. We're the only ones on the plane getting vegetarian meals. So I didn't know he was there. I didn't met him. And halfway through the flight, the Delta stewardess looked at me and said 3 times like she was hypnotized, "Dr. Roger Lear, please report to seat 22A for your vegetarian meal." But she wasn't looking at the seat, she was looking at me. So I said, "My daughter, that was strange." So I said, "I'm just going to walk on back there and see what happens." And that was him, so I met him, okay? And then I go on, I said, "Oh, it's just really strange, something on an airplane." But it was true. I won't get into it more. Then I go in, my father's very ill, and he's almost dying. Gray, he was 81, and the doctor told me he won't expect to live the night. So I go home, I get very sad, you can't be happy about that. The next morning I call my cousin at the rehab center. "How's he doing?" Because I didn't want to go there because my mother might die from the shock. I had to find out. I can't take him and say he's died because she's very upset she won't eat. And he said, "He's fine, come on in, come on in." So "What are you talking about?" "Come on in." So I said, feed my mother, drive over there slowly, go there, and it was like a miracle had happened. He was sitting up in bed, he was pink, he's not gray, he's having breakfast, chatting to everybody. All the nurses are nervously scrubbing the room, and I said, "What's happened here?" And apparently a mystery woman had come in at 3 a.m., like you hear in hospital things, held his arm and said, "My name is Sarana, and I have come here to help you." And then she had some sort of thing where she just put energy into his body, like refilling it with energy, like electricity. And he said it was a big shock to him and that he was fixed. Oh, that was amazing.
You're giving me goosebumps, man.
But it was 30 people saw it. All my relatives saw it. So later on, I tried to find out who this person was. He passed away 5 years later. And I tried to find out who this person was. It turns out she is a Celtic healing goddess who lived in Gaul in 300 AD. And she had powers of healing then. And I thought to myself, there's some time travel stuff going on here, okay? So if we consider all the gods of Rome and all that, how strange it seems. One of them visited my father and cured him 2,000 years later. So you've got to open your mind that there's a lot here we don't know, a lot. And I said, what'd she look like? Just a normal human woman. She wasn't an alien. And he lived 5 more years because otherwise he would have been dead. So I have this personal experience. So that's 4 things. Are you happy now that time travel might be real?
I never questioned it to begin with. I did some reading on the Montauk Project, Tesla. Also, I've been reading on the Constitution as well as the Galactic Confederation. So I am not at all concerned. I think time travel is absolutely out there. Plus, I know we're just energy. So I appreciate that backup, though.
Yeah, so I wanted to give you, the reason I did that is to logically give you some background before the amazing stuff I'm going to show you next, okay? And that was why I did it. Okay,
Yeah, no, that's
now,
fine. Go ahead.
all of you are familiar with, I'm not allowed to say a certain thing or I'll get blocked off YouTube. All of you are familiar with who 17 is, aren't you?
Yes, they know the number 17. They know the letter behind it.
And you're not allowed to say it because you're censored. And he
I
often
won't
talks
censor,
about,
but they will. But yeah, we know what you're talking about.
just say 17. Now, he often talks about time travel, and I've been following him. The reason is that the Crocker artist is called Quetzalcoatl, and he has the same first letter. So there's a lot of time travel from Quetzal. And there's a Billy Meyer Quetzal, the UFO Pleiadian. I thought maybe it's the same guy. So I've been following him for like several years now. And there's some time travel things like he predicted the composition of the US Senate, 53-47, a month before it happened. He knew after he was kicked off 4chan, went to 8chan, or 8chan, he'd be 93 days dark exactly, where they censored him off. And he said 93 days dark, even drew a crop picture at the same time to mark that. So there are quite a few time travel things there. He says time travel is fun, future proves past, news unlocks the map. Are there any others, Jason, you can think of?
Those are the big ones that I've followed.
History will not repeat itself this time.
This time,
Donald Trump.
this is not another 4-year election. This
Yeah.
is different.
So there are lots of hints that he's involved with some sort of resetting of time and history. Okay, now given all that, let's get into what's happening now. We've got a big background there now. What happened was, at the end of the last crop circle season, in August, one of the major crop pictures appeared, and I interpreted it in August 9th. I'll show you in a minute. And then about 2 weeks later, a video appeared on a Twitter channel called Mr. Pool, and it matched some secret knowledge from the crop picture, which no one else would know except the guy who made it. And that got me introduction. I'm saying, what's happening here? So starting in August of 2020, not long ago, I started following this man called Mr. Pool on Twitter, and there are a whole bunch of associated sites. And I got there, it turned out there are already like 50 people following him and analyzing it already. It's very similar to crop pictures time travel. So let's just get into Mr. Pool here, because I think it's the strongest case for time travel I've ever seen in terms of real human time travelers from later in the 20th century coming back, maybe US military, and changing things right now. So I'm sure that's happening, okay? So let's just get into it for a second now. I'm going to start showing you some visual information. You ready for that?
Go for it. You're up.
Okay, now here, let's just start with something, given it's topical. This is something posted by Mr. Pool. Okay? So here he is. Trump is saying hello to Mr. Pool. Donald Trump. And he posted this March 10th. And he's done it several times. Here's Trump saying hello to Mr. Pool. And here, Mr. Pool, what does that say? 113. Now, it's not 17, but do you know what 113 means in ASCII code?
I remember seeing it, but you'll have to refresh my memory.
It's the little letter Q. So that just means Q, okay? And if you look at his name, you've got 113 mirrored here. And actually, if you look at that, I'm not allowed to get censored. It's gematria for Q anonymous, 113, 1127 in ASCII code, digital ASCII code. So it actually spells out Q anomalous if you use computer code. So I can't prove that, but it's very suggestive, okay? Here he is. Maybe it's some associated with Q. It may not be the same Q, but it's somebody associated with it. So I got into it like that. So let's just get into Mr. Pool here, because you're going to find out who Mr. Pool is very soon here. I've got to do it. Now, why does he call himself Mr. Pool? He has about 50,000 followers. Mr. Pool is a mirror image of Loop, because he's going to go a loop in time. It's not his real name. A mirror, like 17 says mirror, Pool is loop. And even 17 said one place, follow the loop. He posted that, follow the loop. And here we have the loop. So it's really quite suggestive. And his number 113 means little q in ASCII code. Now, what has he said recently? He's posted some things very recently, just when the election started. Now, this is a teaser because you'll be amazed. On November 3rd, 2020, are you getting this? I'm seeing inverted.
Yep. No, I'm seeing it. It's coming through perfect.
The fun is about to start, begin. That was on election day before the votes came in, okay? The fun is about to begin. And that's encoded. It's not in English, it's in complex code. And there are only 2 or 3 people like me who can read it. There are a few computer experts. I spent an hour decoding that. The fun is about to begin. And along with that, he showed a TV no signal video, like we won't get any signal on the TV. And the soundtrack said, "This is a national emergency," very cryptically, okay? And that was before any votes came in. Now, the next day, he shocked everybody. And November 4th, after the votes started coming in, he said, "Stand by." And it says double meaning. And now he had a TV soundtrack. This is not a test. And then he listed a whole series of US cities that are going to be rioting or crisis soon, where a national emergency has to be called. Boston, New York, Los Angeles, Pennsylvania, okay? And that was just 6 days ago. And you can see there, and he has 50,000 views for all of these. So the question is, are we going to have a national emergency in America soon? Is this really a prediction? So I thought it's significant enough, November 3rd, that I'll confirm and date it scientifically. It'll be recorded in this interview, so if it does happen, nobody can deny it later. You happy with that?
Absolutely.
So, for example, if Trump wins, you can imagine there'd be a lot of riots, wouldn't there?
Oh, when Trump wins and the liberals are flipped upside down, I foresee chaos. Not that I want it, but I don't see how there's a way around it.
And he says it's even an emergency broadcast system is going to be used. So these are dated predictions. So it's not, I'm not being political. I want to date the time travel effect. They're very convincing. Now, let's you ask yourself, is Mr. Poole bullshitting us, or is he telling the truth? A good scientist won't accept anything without evidence. So I know about time travel. Maybe he's just bullshitting us. Now I'm going to show you a couple other things that will amaze you or be convincing. First of all, there's no doubt that Mr. Poole knew about the COVID lockdown before it happened. Because on February 15, he posted that we'd all be in handcuffs soon. Okay?
You know what's really funny is
What's that?
I was playing a video here of one of Mr. Poole's audio files, and in it it said "stand down," and everyone's freaking out thinking someone's watching our stuff because it came through
Yeah.
the microphone. Continue on.
So he knew about it. He knew he locked down before. It wasn't just that. But in December, he showed this here. A prisoner. We're all prisoners, and on the dice it's snake eyes. You see? We're the losers. Snake eyes. Prisoner holding the card snake eyes dice. We'll be locked in our homes. So that's another one. I could show you a whole bunch. He's done quite a lot of this. And he knew this before the lockdowns happened, like months before the lockdown happened. And here in December, these are actually RNA viruses. They're not COVID, but he said a virus will be coming, an RNA virus. And this was December 19. This is the Marburg virus. But the RNA virus, you know, time travelers don't give you a lottery thing. They're suggestive. So anyway, there's enough there to say for sure as proof that Mr. Poole knew about the lockdown a few months before it happened. I can say definitively, because that we need evidence that he's not bullshitting us. Because it's a strange thing, right? Okay, you ready to be amazed now?
I'm always amazed by everything you do. Keep going.
Okay, now this was one of my personal things. What happens is I work on crop circles with some other people. One of them lives in Rhode Island, and she's married to a defense contractor, quite reputable. You know, people who follow Mr. Poole, big defense contractors, these very reputable people following him secretly, top companies, because they also see this. You know, I won't say it, but it's not like crazy people. Now, I was shocked. Occasionally I have a contact from aliens. Sometimes you dream something, you think, well, is that a contact? And then sometimes you have something verifiable. This happens in crops. You see people like Janet, who you talked to, was in a restaurant in Marlborough at the Polly's Tea Room, I think. And she was there with her husband, Bert, and a few other Dutch people. Dutch people are a bit crazy, you know? And then they were sitting there and they said, they were frustrated, the crop circle phenomenon. They said, why can't we solve it? And Bert said, he looked at, there was a stained glass mirror on the side, and it had showed a tempered cross. He says, I would like to have them draw a tempered cross in crops 2 days from now if you're real. And everybody walked away in the bullshit. Sure enough, and there were 5 people at the table. 3 days later, it's well documented, this beautiful 5 Templar crosses drew in a row, right in the field not very far away. So that's why if you ask Janet, she'll confirm it for you, okay? This is a real thing, and that Roland has it. Some people get this. I was in 2012 on top of Adam's grave with an English friend and her boyfriend, and we were bored. It was Sunday afternoon, and we looked at beautiful grass, June 25th. I walked down, point down about 100 meters, like one right there. 12 hours later, this huge thing was right there, and I came back to it. Exactly, I mean, it could have been anywhere. You know, the probability is like winning the lotto at a slot machine for that to happen. So, anyway, this year, what happened was, there was a big crop picture on August 9th relating to when ETs are going to come back, suggesting they might come back by next summer for 2021, which is very exciting if true. So I was following it very closely. We're not very far from having a big UFO event like next summer in the Northern Hemisphere. So what happened was, well, Mr. Poole, I had never heard of him before, on August 16th, 2020, you can look it up, he posted a video on Twitter, an amazing video with like 60,000 views, and it shows an ET spaceship coming through a wormhole, orbiting Earth and landing in a wheat field. Where crop pictures are drawn. Somebody sent it to me and I said, how did you know that? And actually in the background, They're images of the crop picture I just done in the background, which had appeared a week earlier, superimposed sort of. So I thought that's really strange. Okay? And it matches like very similar to our crop picture August 9th, 2020 at Woolstone Wells. So I thought that was very strange, very strange. Okay, now I was already freaked out a little bit. These always freak you out. On August 24, about a week later, he posted a coded message I'll show you in a minute. And I spent 4 or 5 hours solving the message. I was sitting here working at it with other people. And the message said simply, soon, comma, everything will make sense. But it's deeply coded. You can't just read it. You have to work at it for 4 hours to figure it out. Soon, everything will make sense. Pretty strange. And at the same time, he posted a certain latitude and longitude of Despair Island in Rhode Island Sound. Now, Despair Island in Rhode Island Sound, what's that? Here it is. Mr. Poole, I'll prove it to you. I hope Janet's watching this. August 24, Mr. Poole posted this. That code leads you. Soon everything will make sense. And then he posted the lat longitude in mirrored of these lat and long. It's Despair Island in Rhode Island Sound. It's one of the most obscure places you could. There's nobody lives there. It's just a rock. Okay. You happy with that? So it was a puzzle. I said, well, what's going on here? So I went to Google Earth, and I found out where Despair Island in Rhode Island Sound is. And here it is on Google Earth. There's Despair Island. What an unpromising place right there. That's the latitude and longitude, the northern tip of the island. Actually, it's right there. And why would he post that? Well, it turned out that one of my crop circle friends who does my videos for me and all that, someone as close to me as Janet, was on a boat that day sailing around Rhode Island Sound. Strange events. My friend was there. I don't want to mention her name, but she wants privacy. And her husband builds submarines for the U.S. government. Very reputable. So I didn't tell her this had happened. I said, well, let's just object it. I asked her to first draw a map of where she was, exactly where in Rhode Island Sound was she. And she drew this map for me at my request with a yellow line. And you can see she had sailed about 100 meters from the tip of Despair Island, the latitude and longitude right here. She'd sailed like a football field away from it, or closer, as close as you can get without wrecking the boat, okay? So this is very strange, okay? What's the answer to this puzzle? And she didn't know anything about Mr. Poole yet. Next, this is really, you're gonna be freaked out when you see this. Next, I asked her, what was she talking about on the boat? She was with her husband and another guy, a couple other guys. What were they talking about? Well, they were very frustrated about the American political situation before the election, and they were all saying, nothing makes any sense. And they were saying that loudly, okay?
Yep.
Nothing makes any sense. So then the coded message was simply a reply. Soon,
back it up a little bit. Back it up a little bit. There you go.
Soon, nothing makes sense. Soon, everything will make sense. So, somehow, let's just revert. I've had some time to think about this. Somehow, they had an observational drone, saw her in a boat, listening to her. Someone heard her conversation, like you hear about this, like Bert, and they decided to reply to her. Now, I don't know why, whether she's in crop circles, whether it's proof, or maybe one of her children is a member on a time travel team, or I don't know why. But I verified this, however strange it seems. This is true. And I was sort of freaked out for a day or two when these things happen, you know. But do you have any questions about that before we go further? So I thought there's got to be something to this Mr. Poole character. This can't just be bullshit. There has to be something to it. So I started into it any more like that.
Well, so this is, and I'm going to let you continue on because I'm completely fascinated. I'm just trying to deconstruct in my head what this all is, so I remember that Laura Eisenhower talks about, and she kind of confirms that Dwight Eisenhower was had a treaty with negative ETs, and then I feel like we are coming full circle around to I think the president, as well as the administration and the white hats of the military, to regain back not just America but to regain back the planet. Honestly, I think they're working with the good ETs to stop this cycle we have going on, and we're going into a new treaty, but this time more positive. And somehow, the Mr. Poole, all of this stuff comes together. Obviously, you're much more intelligent when it comes to this information, but you can kind of comment on that because that's what it kind of feels like to me.
Yeah, just wait 1 second. Just wait 1 second.
Jeez, we have another Jason Q. Jason Q, I saw you on the comments out there. I know you're there. You just messaged my phone saying you're in the garage all day. And he gets up and goes away like you do.
There's a delivery at the door. I either sign it or tell him my name or something.
That's okay. Carry on.
So I didn't want to interrupt. So this is pretty freaky, but as you said, these close ETs, Trump knows for sure. You know, he's waving hello to Mr. Poole here. I mean, it's pretty obvious, Mr. Poole here waving hello to Trump. Okay, so now let's get into what I want to do is, the purpose I'm doing this is not just to speculate, I'm documenting certain time travel predictions. So if it happens by the end of November or December, we have on this record that time travel has been verified. Scientifically. I mean, there's no way anybody could deny it.
This is why I love you, because there's a lot of people out there who want to talk about the woo-woo of ETs and UFOs, which I also enjoy, but you actually show us and you explain to us physical evidence of this, especially for the people out there who think that this is all demonic and horrible, and they don't understand there's objective evidence to this.
Yes, so what I want to do is, let's just review. He's already done some time travel predictions, but we call that retrodiction, after the fact. These things are before the fact. So let's just review some time travel predictions. Mr. Q, and I'm going to do is, you can write them down if you want, things which he suggested, and I'm going to show you what the evidence is. If they happen, then you'll know the time travel is real. I'm pretty certain this is going to happen. The first thing, as you remember, on November 3rd and 4th, he said, the fun is about to begin, stand by, double meaning. Double meaning means when your TV set goes off, you see something on the screen, please stand by. The TV screen will go off, and there'll be riots in the USA, big cities, and Trump will have to call a national emergency in the near future. Okay? First two predictions. And that can only happen if Trump wins. If Trump loses, that doesn't make any sense, does it?
Not at all.
Okay, so we got that prediction there. Big national emergency coming up. Different cities. Now, I want to show you something else that's going to shock you. A defense contractor called this to my attention because lots of people are studying Mr. Poole in full archives of all his messages. And one of them was here. When you see this, you'll have chills going up your. I just decoded it 2 days ago myself. If someone says, give me something and says something, I read the whole thing myself just to check. I don't take anybody's word for anything. Even if it takes hours, I just redo it, okay? Because it's too important to have somebody deceive you or mislead you or have it wrong. Now, the ET message I've said from these other races, there are two things they call. First, they call them shadowed travelers, and I'm a decoder. They know I'm a decoder. They also have shadowed travelers, which are presumably your time travelers. I've got that in the codes from the CJ fellow, real ET codes. So I'm pretty sure the ETs know that we have human time travelers. So let's just consider. Now I want to show you the message that Mr. Poole wrote 1 year ago. You know, 17 says Delta, 1 year Delta or something. I want to show you the 1 year Delta 1 year ago, before the current events of what's happening right now. When you see this, you'll have the hair on your arm stand up. So we have to consider Mr. Poole and his friends, what we call shadow time travelers.
Back it up a little bit.
November 17, 1 year ago,
okay.
He had this. This was one of the messages. Storm is here, like the storm. The rain will begin shortly. Water is getting colder. Our friend 17 says, watch the water, right? Now, look at the next thing. Notes crash means bank notes. Gold, and now look what I've labeled in red between them. Reversal, reset, judge. Reversal, reset, judge. This was a year ago. Now, just this morning, I saw Biden had lost electoral votes. He's down below 270 again. So
Yeah, he
the
lost
current
them.
vote,
He lost them before we went on tonight.
yeah. So this was November 17. So reversal of the election is underway, a reset, and now it's going for the Supreme Court judge. Now that don't make sense to us now, but you've got to remember he did this. I verified this was from November 17, 2019. Okay. And what's the odds? How can you get that? Storm is here, reversal, reset, judge. So somebody else called this and gold standard. Now Trump's the only one who's going to put us on a gold standard because the notes crash, the bank notes. Now there's other things I don't know what they mean yet. Well, they haven't happened. A transmitter reveal, unstable, tested fast. I don't know what the transmitter is. No time, 11 double meaning. I don't know what that means. No turning back since 2012. So apparently they've had this program on since 2012, okay? But the key factor here is, this is the next prediction, reversal, reset, judge. If the Supreme Court resets the election with the judge, which it seems like very likely, enough electoral votes now will be reset, so Trump wins. Actually, that's 50% or more probability. You got to remember, Mr. Poole did this November 17, 2019, okay? Which means, now just think about that for a second. That means the timeline has been set all the way since then.
Well, and I'm going to add something really quick. It's interesting because if we know that there's supposed to be a market crash, even if you don't look at this stuff and you just base it on what the market looks like. And right now, the market is going up higher and higher and higher. And I told a friend of mine today who's in finance and studies it, and I said, it's almost like they're pushing the market up higher and higher for the coming crash.
Yeah. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm just documenting which look like real time travel predictions. If these happen, there's no possible way they could happen by accident. Now, a few days ago, let's just come up to now, two more. A few days ago, we're going to ask ourselves, what chance does Donald Trump have of being reelected as president? The news people are telling us about 10%, even if the court cases go his way. Now that 2 days ago, I know you want to know what's really the latest. On November 8th, which was 1 day ago your time, the same day they announced Joe Biden as the projected winner, what did Mr. Poole post? He posted simply 100%, which is humorous. So let's just review this here. What chance does Donald Trump have to be reelected? The news people say 10% chance. The same day they said Biden's going to win, Poole posted, who's clearly a friend of Trump, he said 100%, which means he set the timeline. That could mean he set the timeline. So now there's a 100% chance Trump will win because he can. So what we're looking at here, there's another prediction. There's one more I'm going to show you after this. These are so remarkable. What we're looking at here, let's just understand how this happens. Mr. Poole and his friends have some device which labels them look forward in time. It's like a science fiction movie. Now the question is, if you can look forward in time, can you change events like in 2018 or 2019 and adjust the probabilities for a year later, 2 years later? It's like out of the movie Fringe or something, but I think that's what they're doing. They like changing something a year or two ago and set all those events in place. And before the 100%, he did a post saying, timeline remains unchanged. So clearly he's involved, timeline remains unchanged. So clearly he's involved in setting a timeline, just like in this Fringe TV show. Now he calls his device a quantum gate, how he's seeing through time. People call it Project Looking Glass. This is clearly some sort of ET tech, we can't do it. And he asked the question, how do we know everything you don't know? Because he has a quantum gate. So let's just think about that. We've got a bunch of time travel predictions now. Mr. Poole and his friends, maybe they're in Cheyenne Mountain, they have access to some tech where they can do future viewing. They can go out and, depending on what they see happening at the election, they can change something before, maybe that'll change it. So somehow they're changing the probabilities of what will happen. It may happen a year in advance, 2 years in advance. That's really a big thing to think about, okay?
It's
Do you have any
so
opinion on
so
that? One
so
more thing.
I would love to get your feedback on that, and because um I think a lot of people are trying to understand how do you switch or even converge timelines. Now, I've studied this a little bit. I'm not an expert on it, but I've studied it. Can you give everybody a little idea of how timelines could change or timelines could converge in your words if you understand what that means?
Nobody really knows because we don't know temporal science. But there seem to be a multiplicity of timelines running through all the time, like in quantum mechanics, constantly. And in the Rendlesham-Forest code, we're time travelers. They said one place, continuoquence PR. Time is a continuous sequence of probabilities. In scientific terms, that means it's a Markov distribution. Markov. That's what they call it. I don't use jargon. So all these different possibilities are going through. Now you can't change it. However, if you have a device where you can look forward 2 years and see what's happening then in the consensus timeline, and you can try to change it, and you can say, what's the probability this will be our real timeline? Will it be 10% Trump gets to this? And they can keep changing events a year or two before, and eventually the probability is 100% that Trump will succeed. So this is certainly a very strong prediction, and it seems to be what they've done. It seems to be we don't know because imagine how far ahead they are of us, okay? Talking about 10,000 years of tech maybe, but they seem to have adjusted. Having a viewing device, you can follow and keep changing the timelines and adjust it. I mean, I know quantum mechanics, I know relativity. This is a branch of science which we don't know yet, so I can't say more. But I wouldn't say people can't do it.
But
Obviously, even you can imagine we could do it in 1,000 years from now.
and this could also make sense on why a lot of people today, especially on Twitter, are going back and retweeting or reposting Donald Trump at the time, well before he was president, when he was tweeting back in like 2010, 2012. It was almost like he was gearing up towards something. And then he was the first ever like truther when it came to Obama not being a citizen of the US. And
Yeah.
it's almost like he might have been working with whatever was behind the scenes military wise to prepare for what we're going through right now.
And if you remember right when 17 came, I was in England in August, just before that happened. There were two big crop pictures. I went to one of them, and we had to drive a long way. And the first was a big letter Q in crops near Stratford upon Avon. And the tail of the Q, there were two trees. There was a big dead tree and a big green tree. And I had to walk past the dead tree. And I thought, it's pretty strange, why? And he used a landscape. The tail of the Q pointed to the green tree and not the dead tree. So he's providing us with life rather than death. Now I did that back in, and actually there was 17 light rays. So I knew that in August of 2017. And there was a big radio tower drawn near the airport, in Southend Airport, which means a broadcast tower, and there's letter Q at the bottom. It means he was going to fly into the airport and begin broadcasting. So 17, as of the eclipse then, 17 was going to fly in 2017 and begin broadcasting. And there were a lot of crop pictures like that. And that's what the crop pictures said. So I was expecting something like aliens would take over our TV, and the TV would say, hello, I'm from the Sirius constellation. And that didn't happen. Instead, we got this thing on the internet. So it took me a little while to connect the two dots there to figure out he'd actually going on the internet. So sometime between when these crop pictures happened in August of 2017, I'm just thinking about them, and then Trump said calm before the storm in October 6, 2017. And if you look at the Trump video, he traces the letter Q with his hand. He is in the air.
Yep.
You remember that video?
Yep, exactly.
He traces out in the air. So sometime in the intervening period of about 6 weeks, he had to come down from the sky. He met presumably NSA people, and they must know him. And then he made his way to see the president. And there's no way he could see the president without having pre-knowledge of the American security services beforehand. There's no way they're going to let this guy come down from the sky and meet Donald Trump, So he must have had foreknowledge, and that's only a 6-week period. That's how it all began. And there's a lot of stuff on that. I was sort of freaked out at the time. A lot of stuff went on. I won't get into it. So somehow in that period between the middle of August And October 6th is when the team of them came down from somewhere and met intel officials with the NSA maybe, and they made their way to see Trump. And he told them, in our future, there's a storm in our future, a big storm. So what's happening is now, the storm, Mr. Poole, I won't get into it. You want to do?
That's actually something I wanted to take you down that road. Is we the last time you were on the show, we talked about obviously somewhere between December 14th and 21st of the storm, and I wanted to find out if you had any tweaking of your theories or any more information on what you think, because a lot of people are panicked about this, the storm in December, and are we safe? Are we going to live, etc. But I'd love to get your update on that.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it tentative because I'm not sure. Something's going to happen very serious. And I just was talking to a whole bunch of people this morning, and we're all speculating on it. It could be big riots, like you saw a national emergency because the Democrats riot and they drive the country into the ground, something political or warlike, or it could be something from space. So we don't know. I can't say for sure, okay? Like, we can't see it yet. So it's a good idea if you're out there to just have some water on a stove and a bit of month's supply of food. It's always a good idea. This is a really good idea right now. It only costs about $300, water and a butane stove and pasta and some food. So if something does happen, your neighbor's starving and you're just perfectly happy, for a month or two, you've got everything you need, just sit there, So it's a really good idea to do that because it's so cheap. It's just like you get insurance on your house, fire. Your house isn't going to burn down, but or you go out on a boat, you have a life jacket, a flare. So as an emergency insurance thing, it's a really good idea to do that now because we don't know what's going to happen. If something does happen, I'll come on a third time, but there's no evidence. But they do say it'll be around Christmas, and that little clock that the Mickey Mouse watch, the 10 and the 2 on the 17 website. Remember that?
Yep, I remember that.
It's also on Mr. Poole's posted that as well, and he said it's happening when the Christmas ornaments are out. Christmas ornaments, it's Christmas time. Christmas presents under the tree. So whatever that clock refers to, it refers to something around Christmas or just before. But it could just be like riots. It could be, so I don't know. I don't know what's happening.
Do you think there has anything to do with either Planet Nibiru or the solar flash by any chance?
I don't think the Nibiru is going to crash or anything. It could be a shock wave, for example, coming to Earth, and we just can't see it yet because it's not in our event horizon. It could be like some nearby nova, or there's a ripple of something, or it could just be a human. I don't think that, he's very metaphorical. I think it's better what we do now. Just document the real-time travel predictions, which will happen soon, and we can tell if those come true. And if they do come true, we'll have confidence to move forward. That's what a scientist does. As a scientist, you're always faced with insoluble problems and soluble ones. You have something like, I'm trying to build something, a UFO out in my backyard, a friend's coming over tomorrow. You float up in the air like the Russian guy did. And I haven't built the whole circuit. So you do what you can. You build this circuit and get that right. You solve half the trouble, and you've got half of that as a firm base to build on. So scientists, we can't solve all the problems all at once, but we can build firm bases. And then when more data comes in, we can add that on top of the firm base rather than starting from scratch. So because we're faced with, otherwise we're just like throwing darts, and you lose credibility.
Right.
You happy with that?
I'm happy with that. What are your thoughts on how fast we might see legitimate, real disclosure of other beings, other ships, and then how does that look like going forward? I mean, do we then become like neighbors to these? Is this become our new normal at some point? How would you?
I suspect my guess is very early, in the summer of the Northern Hemisphere summer that's coming up, we will get it then.
Really, that fast?
Yes, and there'll be, I don't want to say more because it's speculation, but you'll understand later why they're coming then, to save us, to help us. And dozens and dozens of crop pictures suggest that. It doesn't prove it, but they suggest that they've got dozens and dozens. But I don't want to we're a little way off. And I would say that's just a suggestion, not a proof. But
that makes sense. I mean, what I have read is that not humans, but the elite have done so much harm to planet Earth, and especially with the nuke and the bombs and everything else, that it really, really unsettles the entire universe, especially our part of the neighborhood. And they need us to wake up. And they can't necessarily do exactly what they want to until we have a certain amount of awakening. But it's
Yeah.
we have to fix this planet, or we're going to be a very big problem for the rest of the galaxy, essentially.
Okay. So what I want to do is, it's so speculative. What we're going to do is we're going to get all the predictions and see whether they come true or not. You'll know by the end of November or December 10th in 4 weeks. And if they don't come true, we'll say it was bullshit. If they do come true, then we verified time travel. So that's a very important scientific thing. Like Einstein predicted light would bend around the sun. It's a theory, but you still have to measure the light bending around the sun. So short-term predictions are a really good thing to do that. And then we're verified. We know now it's true. So I've shown you like national emergency, 100% Trump. There's a whole series of things. Reversal, reset, judge. Now the last one is so funny. I want to show you what it is. People are talking about fake ballots. Do you know about that?
I do know about that, yes.
They talk about blockchain technology and fake ballots.
The quantum financial system with blockchain technology in the future.
Now, apparently, whether they actually made ballots like that already. Okay, so Mr. Poole posts over and over again, it's metaphorical. What he's posted over and over again, that this Biden win, you got this guy's a bit of a joker. The Biden win is some kind of sting, like Robert Redford, the sting, or a drug sting. You know, a policeman steals drugs from the locker, the evidence locker. He sells it to criminals. The drugs are labeled. He collects the money. It's a sting. They set him up so he gets caught. So Mr. Poole has suggested over and over again that this election is somehow a sting operation to catch the Democrats cheating. So, quite amusingly, you have to laugh when you see this. Quite amusingly, he posted a scorpion. Scorpions sting. A scorpion comes over a city and does the sting. There's one. A scorpion is what does the stinging. The other thing is, this was even funnier. He posts scorpions like 3 or 4 times now. Here's the scorpion, and why is it blue? Because you're looking at it under ultraviolet light. So apparently when you examine the ballots under ultraviolet light, there's the sting. It's a metaphor. It's a very humorous metaphor. This is repeated over and over again. And apparently, Trump will announce the sting at some point. They show Trump on a microphone talking about this. So that's a fifth time travel prediction. You can imagine if Trump would get up and said, our investigators have now found that the ballots were all fake and we caught them cheating. That would be a sting. But that doesn't seem outside of the realm of possibility. It seems like 50%. Because there are a lot of ballots, more ballots than voters. You know, what if a million of them are printed in China or don't have the ID on them? Like counterfeit money. What if they're like counterfeit money and they just put Biden votes? So Mr. Poole has done, everybody get that? The great monster taking over the city, the scorpion, or the blue scorpion shining in the sting under UV light. So that's about 5 predictions. I've given you 5 of them or so, you know.
Those are pretty good. Those are pretty good scientific predictions. Obviously, they're not. We don't know if they're going to be true, but the way you outline them is actually logical, deductive thinking, which is what science actually is. And I appreciate you because you're actually showing people how science works. Is the fact that you make a prediction of something you think could occur based on what you're decoding, and then if it doesn't come true, okay, that was BS. Let's go to the next one so we can kind of like fine tune this to get to the science and the fact.
Yes, I've given you like 5 of them. One's the loss of TV signal, national emergency, the fun's about to begin, the sting, 100% Trump winning, the reversal reset judge from a year ago. There's a whole bunch of things. In summary, they all suggest there will be a reversal by the judges or whatever. Trump will win. There'll be big riots and national emergency afterward. There may be a sting. If there's a sting, then they'll be arresting the Democrats. It's not just counting them wrong, but if you print fake ballots, you'll be arresting people. I mean, that's illegal to do that. So that's basically what the total sum of predictions. And today on November 9th, your time, I'm just documenting them. And we'll see if they come true or not. That's what scientists do. You know, I've just been in the lab all morning. I've got my own garage lab, and I've set up one experiment. I post some of the results on Twitter. If you see, I'm posting like little physics videos, and you test an experiment and see if it comes true or not. I did one yesterday, and something happened. I did another experiment, it failed. I've just set another experiment up. I've got friends coming over. We'll spend the day in the lab tomorrow, testing high frequency power and how it behaves, and various things. And either the experiment comes true or it fails. So you have to accept that not all your experiments are going to succeed. And then if you get one to succeed, then you're stronger than you were before. And that's what I like to say. I'm not saying this will come true, but I'm saying if now I've documented it and you've got it all on you've got a record of this, don't you?
Yeah, the other interesting thing too is, let me add to that, because a good friend of mine is very much into the scientific aspect of astrology, and we're actually in we're in Scorpio, and I'm gonna say this totally wrong because it's not my world, but we're in Scorpio from October 23rd to November 22nd.
Moon's in Scorpio.
That's right.
Right. This date at this time, I didn't want to bring that. That's again related to when this thing's going to happen, when we're in Scorpio. A second double meaning. These things have
The stars don't lie, sir.
So you don't have to call me sir anyway. So we've got a very exciting time here. The world's in crisis. The real question is then, are events, human events, being guided by higher powers for our benefit? And if this comes true, we can say, yes, we can call them God or angels. Higher events are really being guided for our benefit. And what people don't realize is, it's not just the UFOs and the abductions. You have this crop circle program going on for 30 years. Highly intelligent, beneficial messages from some sort of wormhole technology. It's coming from another space and time. Maybe not even, maybe a different timeline. And they're doing it for our benefit. So they're guiding us in the right direction. And as soon as you think that's true, then you change your whole psychology. And I'm not afraid. I've been doing this for so long. And otherwise you have the psychology of fear when the aliens are going to attack us, they're going to shoot our cities. And it's like, you know, it's totally paranoia. It's just crazy paranoia to think that every alien out there is your enemy. Obviously you're not going to jump in and meet them all. So I'd like to think that you can get a higher mentality, a higher consciousness. So crop circles are designed to raise our consciousness. And they're, like you talked to Janet, she probably said the same thing, didn't she?
Absolutely, 100%, yep.
So she's done beautiful books, Janet, Raised a Consciousness, and she's done these fall cabal videos. And she's a better speaker than me. I was hoping she would be the one to carry it forward, but she's been censored. She can get on TV and speak quite well. But her consciousness has been raised, a whole bunch of people, and it hasn't penetrated England. You go to England, and I was there, and I stood at the bed and breakfast. The lady comes out and says, she's crying and hugging me. And I said, what are you hugging me for? I've never met this woman with my wife. And she says, I knew they were real. I knew they were real. They were telling me otherwise. You're thinking like in Nazi Germany being in England. It's true. The government, the people there are so oppressed by the government, and they're starting to wake up. And it's very sad, you know, it's very sad. You see these poor people, and they're being oppressed intellectually, like held as slaves, really. I mean, you see them. And in the USA, it's less so. So let's just hope for the best, I think.
You, as always, are fantastic. I appreciate all your information, and I am very happy to bring you back as this is all going down, so you can probably keep people a little bit relaxed and also kind of let us know what you're reading.
Mr. Poole. Now, when I saw that, I thought, and that means Q. So Mr. Poole saying hello to him is very, very, very suspicious, isn't it? You know.
Well, sir, yes, I call you sir. It's just it's my thing. I appreciate you being back on and giving us a bunch of new information. I really do.
Are there any things you want to talk about?
I am looking here to see if anyone here. Let me do this. Let me if they have a question or two, we'll ask you one of those questions or two and see if it's something. Um, here's a question. Uh, are there any crop circles in the U.S. and if not, why?
There were a lot of crop circles in the 1990s in the U.S. and spread around. And they're probably like, and there's a crop circle research center. There's one at Serpent Mound was a very famous one. There's one at Serpent Mound. Now, when you do it now, I start thinking about it. When you start, as soon as you call that, all these images start flooding through my head. I haven't solved all of them. There's so many. And there was some in California, great ones. The most controversial one, as you know, was in California. Do you remember that one in December 2013? Chular.
You told me about that one, yeah.
Now, that was supposedly an advertisement for the NVIDIA corporation. Supposedly, it was an advertisement for their gaming chip. However, it didn't, there was no evidence they actually made it. I think so. I think that was a real one. And actually, in the middle, they had a big chip, and it spelled out 192 in Braille code. Braille means you're blind. And how many nations are there on Earth?
I do not remember that number.
192. So it means there are 192 blind nations on Earth. So I don't think that would be a suitable advertisement for the NVIDIA company to call their customers blind, if nothing else. So I suspect that was real. But when it appeared, within 4 hours, it was sealed off by terrorism security guards. So no one was allowed to go and visit or anything, So they had a terrorism response to it. So they debunked. So we couldn't argue the whole thing, So I suspect that.
Here's my final two questions for you. I'll give you one at a time. Do you know anything about Project Pegasus?
No, I don't.
Okay, so we won't ask that one then. And then lastly, anything on the Mandela Effect that's kind of
Yeah, that's right. Definitely, Mandela Effect is definitely, that's easy. Forget about CERN. That's just a red herring. The Mandela Effect is, imagine a cable with lots of wires. Each of those is a timeline. So or corn, imagine corn, like maize, and some of the kernels are one color and others another color, okay? Our timelines are mixed. So that's like in quantum mechanics, there's a certain probability for things to happen, but it's not definite. So any event is associated with lots of different timelines, which there are many worlds interpretation. That's approximate, We don't know. That was what Feynman said. What if a particle doesn't just go through 2 slits? What if it goes through 3 slits, 4 slits? So then eventually he integrated that over all possibilities for his theory of quantum electrodynamics. I used to see Feynman walking to lunch, Caltech, Burger Continental. He ate at the same place as me. He just, smartest physicist. So what happens is if you've got some sort of various probabilities flowing through time, suppose you make a change. You may not penetrate all of the things in the timeline. So after that, half the timelines may change and half may stay the way they were. So reality becomes split into 2 pieces. So the most famous one is, for example, in the Bible, the lion will lay down with the lamb. For all of my childhood, I learned that in Isaiah, the lion will lay down with the lamb is a symbol of the Lion of Judah, Jesus, laying down with his lamb when he returns. It's a religious thing, the book of Isaiah, right? And there's statues all around Europe. They're engraved, massive amounts of physical evidence. So now if you go look at any Bible, it says the wolf is going to lay down with the lamb. Now Jesus was never a wolf. It's just ridiculous. So the Bible itself has changed. In the reality, there's different reality. And the Christian preachers don't like that because they think it's the absolute unchangeable word of God. But it's changed, and there are quite a lot of things. That's the most famous Mandela Effect. For example, after my father, I'll give you my personal thing, long before it was called a Mandela Effect, after my father was healed by this time traveler in 1999, I would wake up every morning and I didn't know, I had memories of both timelines. Is he alive? I never knew where I was. Is he alive? Is he dead? What had happened? I still could remember both timelines. It took a while for it to sort it out. So there was a lot of mental confusion. because my memories of the other one hadn't disappeared. In the TV series Fringe, you see that as a fictional. Have you watched Fringe?
Yeah.
The fictional theme, the other side. She has memories of the other side, this and that. And I had that myself. It was very confusing. And people watch Nelson Mandela, and they think he died. And there was actually a book from South Africa saying he died in 19. They printed that book. So what's your reality is a mosaic. If you think of reality as a mosaic of timelines, like mosaic corn, and that when they make a change, not all of the kernels change, 50% one or the other. Also, the Volkswagen. I don't know if you're old enough. When I was a Volkswagen, the VW signal had a big cross right in the middle of it. My friend's girlfriend had this old Volkswagen Bug, and it didn't look at all like the symbol. It was all crossed. There was no V and W. It was a big cross symbol. And now you see it's a V and W symbol. The logo hasn't changed. The timeline itself changed. It's not. They didn't. The companies didn't change it. If you go back and look now, it's all different. So there are lots of little subtle changes. And I don't know which Mandela effect they like, but this is definitely it's time traveler. When a time traveler makes a change, also if you consider this the vast Trump derangement syndrome, consider it from another point of view. What happens if these people think in their very hearts that Trump did not win the election?
Whoa.
You see what I mean?
Now you're blowing my mind territory, because first of all, I looked at the VW logo, and that VW logo, I'm old school. That there was no missing piece in that VW logo before.
Right.
That was just, it was a cross before. That was not.
Right. I was there.
And now you're saying that it's possible Trump was never president in their timeline. That's freaking crazy.
Oh no, I should have said I shouldn't have said that, but it's true.
No. What you said what actually makes sense, because I'm trying to figure out how we get out of this thing for other, like, I don't know how people are going to handle it, but what you said actually makes sense. What if there's a Mandela effect there also with Trump?
Yeah, there was actually a lot of crop circles just before suggesting there'd be a big surprise on election day. Literally, I went to one in 2017. I analyzed it, and it shows the 17 calls himself a white rabbit, right? Because he comes out of wormholes. And there was one in the landscape showing the white rabbit kicking the wicked witch in the ass. I went to it. And Hillary's the wicked witch. Kicking her in the ass. I've done the slides. I didn't want to say because people might get upset. The white rabbit kicking the wicked witch in the bum. It's very, it's like a cartoon. And there was a bunch of things in just beforehand suggesting the election wouldn't come out as expected. So I strongly suspect that without time travel intervention, Trump wouldn't have won the election. He might have run. And then we had, so if you consider all those people who are obsessed and hate Trump, what if they feel, let's be kind to them, what if they feel there's just something wrong about that? What if they're confused, it doesn't make sense to them, and they can't accept that they're still living in the other reality? So if you consider the scale of that as a psychic phenomenon, that's like the world's biggest Mandela effect. Do you agree with that, or?
I'm fully on board Mandela Effect. I mean, I remember like every single Mandela Effect for the most part that I've looked at. I remember it when it was the old school way, and then you like when you just said this whole VW thing, and I'm like, wait a second. I went and looked at it. There is no way that VW had that little gap in between before.
We're set up for Christmas here. And I'll just show you outside what Sydney looks like if your people have never been in Australia. It's bright and sunny outside. It's going to wreck the camera.
Sydney, Australia right now.
Can you see that?
It's beautiful out there.
My swimming pool. I've been working in the garden, the flowers. And the river's over there. It's all bright and sunny. Not a cloud in the sky. This is suburban Sydney. I've got bananas. I've got 3 orange trees. I've got my swimming pool, flowers. So it's very bright and sunny. Jacarandas are blue.
Beautiful. You remind me of my other guest, Jason Q.
I just wanted to show you, and we're getting ready. We're getting ready for Christmas here. My daughter's made this nice tree, so
Beautiful. You know, that's it. That's so that's the question I have to ask you as well. Can you hear me still?
Just let you see what Australia looks like. Our daughter, see a nice package. We got mango trees, we have jacarandas, gum trees. The possums live in these trees too. They come down at night. The bats and the possums. There are a lot of animals here. Just a typical suburban neighborhood, maybe a upper middle class or something.
Beautiful.
Got my little things here. Anyway, I shouldn't have should have showed my street address. People might harass me.
They
Anyway,
can find you no matter what.
yeah, no matter what. So that's Australia's in early summer now.
That was
Okay.
you are fantastic, and I appreciate you dropping some more mental bombs on us tonight because it's so fascinating, and it actually is it's coming together for me, this whole thing, and I appreciate you helping me put that together. So thank you again.
Okay, just to conclude, everybody take a note of the predictions, apparent predictions, write them down. Let's see if they come true. If they don't come true, if they do, then the storm, we'll talk about the storm next time. I don't want to do it yet because I'm not certain what it is, but we can have a follow-up because it's going to be a very important thing. I know it's going to be very important this year. And we'll have ET contact. You know, Mr. Poole says we'll have contact next year. He says in some of his codes. But I don't want to go too far. We'll just go this far and not go too far, you know? So, okay, everybody, happy Merry Christmas to everybody.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate Merry Christmas to you as well. And thank you again for all of your efforts and work. You have been amazing, sir.
And best wishes to everybody in the USA.
Thank you very much. Guys, this is Dr. Horace Drew at Red Collie 1 on Twitter. Go check him out. He is fantastic. Dr. Jason Dean, Revolution Network. As always, go serve and help your fellow man. Have an amazing, wonderful night. Take care.